Welcome back.
Because of you, Mr. President, help has arrived, and on behalf of our nation, thank you. And it is now my great, great honor to introduce the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kamala. You know, when I look out over what happened the last 50 days, when Jill and I first got a chance to move into this magnificent building behind you, I promised the American people, and I guess it's becoming an overused phrase, that help was on the way. But today, with the American Rescue Plan now signed into law, we've delivered on that promise. And I don't mean I've delivered, we've delivered. Look out there and all of you. Patty, there'd still be people, kids in poverty, were it not for all the work you did all those years. And I want to say to Bernie, stepping up and making the case why this was so transformational made a big difference in how a lot of people voted. I look out at all of you, House members as well, who have made the case to the American people why this is so important. I watched my buddy Jim down in South Carolina stand up and talk about how it's going to affect individual people. My inclination is to mention every single one of you, because I think I've called most of you and thanked you already for what you did. I even called Pallone. He wasn't there though. He was on the other side of the river. We joke all the time. He's in New Jersey. I'm in Delaware. I keep reminding him Delaware owns the Delaware River up to the high water mark in New Jersey. But all kidding aside, I want to thank you all. I want to thank particularly the Speaker, who from day one, from the very first day I got the nomination, was supportive in ways that are hard for me to describe. And you know, I served a long time in the United States Senate, longer than anybody if I was still there at the time other than Pat. And if I were still in the Senate, I'd be Senator pro tem because I was 2 years ahead of Pat. But all kidding aside, we've stood with a lot of great majority leaders. But I never saw anybody handle such a controversial, consequential piece of legislation that was right on the edge than Chuck Schumer. I owe you, Chuck. You did an incredible job. And look, and to the members of the House and Senate, thanks for making this happen. You made it happen. As I said, I served 36 years in the Senate. I know how hard it is to pass major consequential legislation, particularly when we only have such minor, small majorities in both houses, Tenny. You've done an incredible job. And Nancy and Chuck, I have to say that I agree with many of the columnists that have commented on this legislation. What you shepherded through the Congress not only meets the moment, it does even more. It's historical, and they call it transformational. And it really is. The bill was supported overwhelmingly by the American people, Democrats, independents, and Republicans, and had a strong support of governors and mayors across the country in both parties, red states and blues. Over 430 mayors contacted me, many of them Republicans supporting the bill. And here's why. Because what you all did with it and the refinements you made, it directly addressed the emergency in this country. Because it focuses on what people need most. Debbie and I often talked about, you got to tell people in plain, simple, straightforward language what it is you're doing to help. You've got to be able to tell a story. Tell the story of what you're about to do and why it matters. because it's going to make a difference in the lives of millions of people in very concrete, specific ways. This legislation, that everybody's already mentioned, will provide $1,400 in direct payments, which we all promised. Well, that means for a typical family of four, a middle-class family, husband and wife working, making $110,000 a year, that means $5,600 check they're going to get. 85% of the households in America will be getting this money. And a lot of you know, because of the way you came up like I did and others, what that can mean. Think of the millions of people going to sleep at night staring at the ceiling thinking, my God, what am I going to do tomorrow? Lost my health care, don't have a job. Unemployment runs out. I'm behind on my mortgage. What are we going to do? Well, guess what? They're going to be getting that check soon, either by direct deposit or a check from the Treasury. And some are going to get it as early as this weekend. This legislation provides resources needed to open our schools. How many of you have dealt, not only in your own home or with your children and grandchildren, if you have them, with how difficult it is? The mental pressure and stress that are on so many families. So many people needing help if they had access to counseling, because it's caused enormous, enormous stress. This legislation extends unemployment insurance by $300 a week until September. It's going to help 11 million Americans who were days from losing that benefit. This legislation includes the biggest investment in child care since World War II. That's not hyperbole, that's just a fact. It's a fact. It provides help for small businesses to stay open. And 400,000, so many have had to close because the first time around you all worked and did a great piece of work in the House, passing significant legislation. What's the first thing the last president did? He fired the folks who were supposed to watch and make sure it got, in fact, distributed the way it was supposed to. We find out so much of it went to people who didn't need it. You all took care of that. It extends coverage and lowers health care costs for so many Americans. So many Americans, and it's a big number for people. It provides for food and nutrition, because people knew, and you all were out there handing out food like many of us were, but you saw people who were in car lines that were literally miles long. You'd see 4 lanes of cars that went back for half a mile each just to get a box of food. Again, through no fault of their own. It's going to help people keep a roof over their heads. 500,000 haven't been able to make their mortgage payments. About to be thrown out of their apartments. They have to make up all that they owe. And those mom and pop realtors are in real trouble. It's going to cut child poverty in half I've talked to so many of you. Rosa, you and I have spent so much time on this. But you guys, you, Patty, and others are the ones who have been leading this for so long. And it's finally coming to fruition. And the American people understand it. It pays for many of the steps we've taken to vaccinate Americans. We're going to be in a position where, because of what you all did in the past, we had the money to go out and literally purchased hundreds of millions of vaccines, and then go out and make sure we had enough vaccinators. Vaccine's one thing, to get the vaccine in a vial, out of that vial and into a needle, and needle into someone's arm. Took tens of thousands of people. And because of you, we were able to mobilize the military. We were able to mobilize FEMA. I was able, by executive order, to allow former docs and nurses to come back and be able to engage in this activity. And one of the things that we said in the beginning that no one thought that I was being straight about was, I said, this is going to create, we have to spend this money to make sure we have economic growth, unrelated to how much it's going to help people. Well, guess what? Every single major economist out there, left, right, and center, supported this plan. Even Wall Street agreed. According to Moody's, for example, by the end of this year, this law alone will create 7 million new jobs. 7 million. And the bill does one more thing, which I think is really important. It changes the paradigm. For the first time in a long time, this bill puts working people in this nation first. It's not hyperbole, it's a fact. For too long, it's been the folks at the top. They're not bad folks. A significant number of them know they shouldn't be getting the tax breaks they had. But it put the richest Americans first who benefited the most. And the theory was, we've all heard it, and especially the last 15 years, the theory was cut taxes and those at the top and the benefits they get will trickle down to everyone. Well, you saw what trickle down does. We've known it for a long time, but this is the first time we've been able to, since the Johnson administration, and maybe even before that, to begin to change the paradigm. We've seen time and time again that trickle down does not work. And by the way, we don't have anything against wealthy people. You got a great idea, you're gonna go out and make millions of dollars, that's fine. I have no problem with that. But guess what? You gotta pay your fair share. You gotta pay some, because guess what? Folks are living on the edge, they're paying. And so again, all it's done is make those at the top richer in the past and everyone else falling behind. This time, it's time that we build an economy that grows from the bottom up and the middle out. The middle out. And this bill shows that when you do that, everybody does better. The wealthy do better. Everybody does better across the board. If that's our foundation, then everything we build upon will be strong, a strong foundation. Our competitiveness around the world, the jobs here at home, the health and quality of our lives. That's what the American Rescue Plan represents. And it's all about rebuilding what I've been saying, and Bernie and a lot of others are saying, the backbone of this country. The backbone of this country are hard-working folks. Hard-working folks, middle-class folks, people who built the country. And I might add, I think unions built the middle class. And it's about creating opportunity and giving people a fair shot. That's really all and everything it's about. In the coming weeks, Jill and I, and Kamala and Doug, and our cabinet, with all of you, members of Congress, we're going to be traveling the country to speak directly to the American people about how this law is going to make a real difference in their lives and how help is here for them. Almost every single aspect would be significant, if you took the piece of this bill and broke it into all the pieces, every one of those pieces standing alone would be viewed as a significant accomplishment. But it's all the work you've done for years to try to get us there. This law is not the end of our efforts, though. I view it as only a beginning. As we look, one of the things that I've been most worried about, and I think you all have too, especially those of us that have been around for 100 years like me, is you've watched people lose confidence in government. Just lose confidence in that we tell the truth. That's why when I announced, I quoted Franklin Roosevelt. He said, "I'll give it to you straight from the shoulder. The American people can handle anything if you tell them the truth." And they really can. Just give it straight from the shoulder. And when we do something right, we're going to make a case for it. And when I make a mistake, I'm going to own up to it and say, it was me. I made a mistake. And I said last night, this is not over. Conditions can change. We're not finished yet. Conditions can change. The scientists have warned us about new variants of this virus. And the devil is in the details of implementing this legislation. I know from experience when the president turned to me like I haven't done to the vice president yet and said, take care of it. You take care of implementing the plan. But she could do it. But I remember being given the dubious distinction of having to implement the Recovery Act back in when we came into office, Barack and I spent literally 4 or 5 hours a day for 6 months. I talked to over 160 mayors, probably more than 2 or 3 times, every governor save one who was looking at from Alaska to Russia, and making sure that we're in a situation where we talk to everybody. But it takes, the devil's in the details. It's one thing to pass the American Rescue Plan. It's going to be another thing to implement it. It's going to require fastidious oversight to make sure there's no waste or fraud, and the law does what it's designed to do. And I mean it. We have to get this right. Details matter, because we have to continue to build confidence.
Hello and welcome to the Nomiki Show. I am Nomiki Konst. So what will it take to rid us of Governor Andrew Cuomo? He said again today, he is not resigning. We have to follow the facts, he said. Wait for the facts, weigh the facts.
As I've told New Yorkers many times, there are facts and then there are opinions. And I've always separated the two. When I do briefings, I put out the facts and then I offer my opinions. But they are two different concepts. Politicians who don't know a single fact, but yet form a conclusion and an opinion are, in my opinion, reckless and dangerous. The people of New York should not have confidence in a politician who takes the position without knowing any facts or substance. That, my friends, is politics at its worst. Politicians take positions for all sorts of reasons, including political expediency and bowing to pressure. But people know the difference between playing politics, bowing to cancel culture, and the truth. People know the difference between playing politics, bowing to cancel culture, and the truth.
This would be funny if it wasn't so preposterous. A guy who mangled and twisted facts for years to serve his interests and protect his regime is now telling you that us, that we should follow the facts. Seriously. Okay, so let's break this down. Cuomo clings to the wreckage of his administration. He says he won't resign and wants to wait for the facts. The cynics, which when it comes to Cuomo include most of us, say he's stalling, hoping this will blow over. But the truth is that the investigations now underway are at least as likely to make things even worse for him. And I'm not even just talking about the 2 investigations with Attorney General Tish James. There are more. The feds. There's an investigation, a police investigation in Albany, raised the possibility of criminal behavior, touching, not just talking, in his sexual harassment scandals. Time may really not be on his side right now. Much of the state's congressional delegation today called on Governor Cuomo to resign. They said Cuomo had lost the power to govern. That is political shorthand for, I am not wasting another ounce of political capital on you, Mr. Governor. Those calling on him to quit included AOC and arguably the most powerful member of the delegation in New York, Representative Jerry Nadler, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, who just weeks ago led the impeachment of Donald Trump for fostering an insurrection. You are not that far from seeing an impeachment in Albany. Just the idea is stunning when you first think about it. The Democratic-controlled assembly in Albany impeaching the governor of their own party. That would be a true way to say it if the Assembly's Democratic Party was Cuomo's party, but it isn't. Cuomo's party is the Cuomo Party, which confusingly in New York State is the New York State Democratic Party. His people are part of that party, but dozens and dozens of democratically elected state lawmakers who ran on the Democratic line are not part of the New York State Democratic Party, which is actually just Cuomo's party. Cuomo's got his machine, and there's other machines being built on the outside. Confusing, I know. All for one, that one is Andrew Cuomo. You can rule by inspiring loyalty, or you can rule by invoking fear. And Cuomo chose fear, and now he has little precious loyalty to save him. As announced by the Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, the Assembly is preparing to lead the first impeachment of a New York State governor in 108 years. The only governor to ever be impeached was William Sulzer, who was impeached and convicted of pocketing campaign contributions. Now, think about this. How bad did it have to get to impeach a New York lawmaker for corruption? Just think about that for a second. But Sulzer's political offense was that he actually broke with his benefactors at Tammany Hall by ordering an inquiry into highway contracts. In other words, Sulzer was punished for his disloyalty, a prophetic signal to Andrew Cuomo, who may soon wish he had tried building loyalty instead of fear. That's what's to come. And I just want to kind of break down what could happen. We are in the middle of budget time. We're starting budget time. In 2 weeks, Governor Cuomo is supposed to present his budget to Albany, to the legislature. This is always a very toxic time in Albany. If he were to resign before then, suddenly that budget process would be taken over by the Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul. I think Governor Cuomo is using the power of the budget negotiations and the control of the budget as a tool, as a mechanism to have control over the situation. It will send Albany, whether people want to actually deal with Governor Cuomo or not in this budget crisis, because it is a budget crisis, whether they want to deal with him or not, it would send Albany into a frenzy, into absolute chaos if he had to resign in the middle of budget time and Kathy Hochul had to take over. I think some people would think, oh, it's going to be easier to get things pushed through with Kathy Hochul because she doesn't have, frankly, the experience of running a budget in New York State. But, be careful what you ask for. Sometimes it's good to know what you're getting into with Andrew Cuomo and how to barter than not. But I don't know. I mean, these are big questions. These are the underlying issues that are at hand right now. And it's not just about him resigning. Some people are saying that the assembly moving forward on impeachment is actually a delay tactic to prevent him from stepping down. And part of that is because you have many assembly members who support Governor Cuomo, many who do not. You still have some Republicans in the assembly and some Republicans more so in the Senate who are going to feed on a moment in which Governor Cuomo, if he steps down, suddenly all the different, everybody who wants something is going to come forward preying on this budget. And just keep in mind, the economy in New York is not doing great. There's a lot of resources needed to rebuild roads, to rebuild the subway, to fund our schools, which are notoriously and illegally underfunded, public schools. There is conversation about a wealth tax on the rich. Of course, real estate is always at play here. And then there's the nursing home scandal, which does play into how things are funded in the state of New York. So it'll be very interesting to see if he makes it through. I think he makes it through because folks want to be able to work through this budget in an effective way. But you don't know. We don't know. And also, there are plenty of people who want to run for governor. And would it be better to run against Andrew Cuomo next time, or in an open seat if he were to resign? Or would it be better to run against Kathy Hochul? And, be careful what you ask for, because, she could very well be somebody that people like, a refresh eye. Who knows? Who knows? There are a lot of factors here, but we will keep covering them because things are happening very quickly. And I love talking New York politics, as you guys know. We have a great show for you today. We're not talking about New York politics today. We are actually going to be talking about an economic bill of rights that has been presented in Wisconsin. Very exciting. We have Representative Kristina Shelton and Francesca Hong. Those representatives are coming on to join us to discuss the economic bill of rights that they've presented. And later we have Natalie Shure and Piper Winkler to talk about today's news. It's Femme Friday, something uniquely. We do this on our show. And shout out to the folks who profiled us for that this week, I should say, for our unique Femme Friday. It's our way of shifting and changing the way that this ecosystem works. YouTube politics is very male heavy, and we are very focused on shifting that. So thanks for joining us. We'll be right back with representatives from Wisconsin. Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. This is very exciting to me. As you guys know, this is Femme Friday. We talk about intersectional issues related to women, revolving around economic justice and how it relates to women, all women. I am thrilled to have on Representative Kristina Shelton. She's a state representative from Wisconsin's 90th Assembly District. Previously, she was appointed to the Green Bay Public School Board, and she was also the Northeast Regional coordinator for the Women's March in Wisconsin. And we also have Representative Francesca Hong. She is a representative in the 76th Assembly District, and she founded the Culinary Ladies Collective. I love that. Thank you for joining today. We're very thrilled.
Thank you for having us.
So I'm going to do this because it's always tough with two people when you're on talking about the same topic. We'll just go in order. So we'll start with Francesca, if you're okay with that, Representative Hong, and Representative Shelton right afterwards, if that works.
Sounds
Cool.
great.
It's the Zoom thing, you know. Someday this will end. All right, so this is a very exciting plan that you've put forward. There's an economic bill of rights in Wisconsin. Is this new, this economic justice bill of rights, is this a new concept for state legislatures? Have you seen this happen before? Let's start with Francesca, Representative Hong. Oh, we can't hear you.
Oh, I haven't done that in so long. And of course, I'm going to do it today.
It's funny how many people are like, I do this every day, and it's still... Don't worry. We all do
I've got a fancy new button on my headphones now, so I get to click that instead of looking for my mouse. No, at this time, I am not aware of other state legislatures that have introduced a resolution that looks like this. But this idea, this concept is not new. Nothing in politics is very novel if you think about it. Everything is kind of a reiteration of something else. And right now, I think more than ever, we are seeing the needs and the demands of the people are very much the same as what we needed a long time ago.
Representative Shelton, are you, related to that? Was there an inspiration from history or any other economic justice bill of rights?
I 100% believe we have to look to our history and our past to understand where we are today. And a good friend of mine, Professor Harvey Kay out of UWGB, I think you know him well. We were talking about how do you set a new vision and how do you vision cast as Democrats and as progressives so that we no longer hold this mushy middle. We don't uphold the status quo. And in those conversations with him, we talked a lot about FDR and his second Bill of Rights. And this is really a nod to the past. We are reviving that idea that, with public commitments, we can uphold our values through a moral and economic imperative.
So let's talk about the substance of this plan. What made it in, Representative Hong, and why?
So I think the key word that we added in that, we didn't see back in FDR's Bill of Rights was the word justice. And we needed to make sure that it was encompassing of a growing progressive party that is multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-generational, and multicultural. So language here was really important. And we also wanted to make sure that we had in the lines things that was really hard for people to say no to. It's really difficult to say no to the fact that everyone is deserving and have the right to clean water, to safe housing, to free and fair public education, a healthy planet, a livable wage, and a justice system that works for everyone. Right now, the status quo is upholding an institutional white supremacy that benefits the rich and universality. And so these are not radical ideas. These are ideas that are embraced by many, and it's time that we take back that narrative and really build on the power of people to push progressive policies that do work for more than the current status quo.
Representative Shelton.
Absolutely. And I love listening to my colleague, Representative Hung, talk about this, because let me tell you, as friends and as colleagues, it is so fun to get to work on this project together. I mean, it's the best of both worlds. And as a party, we need to speak more consistently and clearly about not only our aspirations as legislators, but as people and community. This is an intersectional approach to understanding economic security. We often think, when we think about security, about living wage jobs and unions, and those things are clearly important. But one, I believe, cannot be economically secure if you don't have access to childcare, if you don't have access to transportation and to housing. Oh, and by the way, these commitments, they're not merit-based or means tested. We believe everyone, no matter who you are or where you come from, deserves these rights. And we think as Democrats, we need to stand on these commitments and fight for working people because they have been fighting for us.
So I'm curious how this gets translated into a law. I mean, it's traditionally, you look at a law and it's one law about one bill about giving everybody the right, banning fracking so that water is clean, or a Clean Water Act. How does this all work into, there's a lot in this. It's a huge package, which is very impressive. But how does that work into one bill? Representative Hong.
So I don't think it does. I think our resolution
Lana.
is creating a vision and a framework and really a North Star for our caucus to be able to say, we are fighting for our constituents. And we also want to say, these are the policies that we are fighting for. Because policymaking, if you think about it, is based on principle and power and sharing that. And so in order to do that effectively, I think if we have this Economic Justice Bill of Rights, we then go to our colleagues. And as freshman legislators, we're coming in and it's drinking from a fire hose. Every day is kind of navigating new rules and procedures, but we know that there's been work being done by our colleagues who have been here for a while, and they've been trying to push policies that are very much crafted with the same vision, but it's still somewhat murky, and we haven't always been consistent on messaging. And now with this resolution, we can really help to build coalitions to support some of the legislation that are going to come, because we are going to have to take it piece by piece. We have the CLEAR Act right now that impacts that gets funding for PFAS and mitigating PFAS, and we have folks working on birth control fees, and I think that is directly tied to childcare. So again, this is the vision, this is the North Star, and this is a tool really for us to continue to use to be able to push policy and smaller legislation that we're going to have to kind of use before we're able to take control of the majority.
So Representative Shelton, what's first on the list? Is there something in the package that's most dire and most likely to pass?
Well, right now what we're building is some coalitions within our caucus, but then in the community and across the state as well. And so we certainly have some ideas of where we think we'll start, but we also want this to come from people. Obviously, we would love to see living wage jobs, $15 minimum wage, the ability for for workers to unionize both publicly and privately, and to have access to collective bargaining. So right now there's some work being done looking at that as the first package, but we also want to have conversations with our colleagues and say, what are you working on that we can get behind? And then we'll bring the people to also get behind you, so that maybe this legislation doesn't pass in the next year or two, but maybe it passes in 4 years and we can do the legwork behind it. We want to bring more people to the table and to pull up more chairs and to bring more people into the process of government, because if the government is made up of people, we think people should be involved in the decisions that influence their lives every single day.
So who was part of the collective that helped you build this resolution? Was this a coalition of folks that came together, Representative Hung?
So, credit is definitely due to our amazing staff and our the teams that really worked with us on this, all of our colleagues who signed on, but really, the most credit goes to the grassroots organization, but as well as organized labor, and coalitions that have been working boots on the ground for years, whether it be to get voters out or on building agendas and trying to communicate that to legislators. I think, working alongside them and getting their support was critical and really just a first step. And if for us, this resolution is our kind of down payment and our commitment to showing folks that we are committed to an inside-outside strategy, that our platforms and our position need to be used alongside and with organizations that have supported this.
Representative Shelton, anybody else that's been left out?
It's all of the people doing all of the things. I think Fran and I are committed to taking it to the streets, taking the work out of our Capitol offices and working alongside people every single day, and not centering ourselves in the work and positioning ourselves that we know everything. We want working people who are impacted every single day to, again, be part of this decision making. And that coalition building will be the power through which we can build, not only a progressive Wisconsin, but to bring back our progressive roots from around the country. We have it in our DNA to do hard things. And what I think is inspiring about this is that we have to reignite our collective imaginations that government can work for the people and can do hard things. So I've received such a magnificent amount of support for this. I think people are excited, and there's a belief again that government can work for the people.
Okay, so Wisconsin has this horrible history of right-wing attacks against I don't have to tell you guys against unions, the ability, the right to organize as collective bargaining. We remember the storming of the Capitol. But yeah, we remember. I do, at least. I don't know how many people in the audience do. How do you push forward something which shouldn't be revolutionary, but it is, in the environment that you have at the Capitol right now, with such a strong Republican Party, with the Koch brothers just, nuzzled into every crevice of government in Wisconsin, which is the testing ground for them, I guess. How do you get this accomplished, Representative Hong?
I think I have to go back to what my colleague Kristina said. It is in the power of the people, and there are more people engaged now than before. And my candidacy is actually kind of a proof of that. We coming from the service industry and having very little political experience, I have shown that it is possible to kind of break through the gatekeepers and say, no, we demand access to more information, to education, to understanding the process of how important it is and what state legislators are doing, how it impacts everyday lives of everyday working people. I think we continue to increase engagement, that we continue to work alongside coalitions who have been organizing in their communities and really show that the legislators that are currently in the legislature across the aisle do not serve the people, do not serve their constituents, and actually continue to attack them. Yesterday in a committee meeting, we had a direct attack on Wisconsin workers as being disincentivized from coming back to work. And I had never heard anyone speak of constituents like this in an open manner. And I think folks are ready to fight, and Democrats need to continue to show that we are ready to fight for them and willing to fight alongside them as well.
Are Democrats fully on board, Representative Shelton?
They are 100%. But more importantly, I think we see a lot of independents. We see a lot of people who've been checked out, people who might have left the Democratic Party and said, maybe they were Sanders supporters, or, they were identifying as a further left wing. I think those folks also are looking for a home. But I'd actually like to go back to your question. Sure. To Representative Hom. We have to remember who we are in this state. And the past 10 years cannot define who we are as Wisconsinites. We have a progressive history here that has set the tone nationally for a very long time. And I say this a lot, that, the gerrymandering that we have here, our unfair maps, are the worst in the country. And in a way, it's a form of political gaslighting, because it tricks voters into believing that we are a deeply red state, when the truth of the matter is we are not. We are a blue state. We are a purple state, but we have more Democrats than what our maps show. So it's our job to remember that, and to go into communities and to commit to our values, and to tell people that we're going to fight for them, that no matter, if our legislation passes or not, that we're going to keep showing up. And I think that's what we need to do a better job of, because this is going to be, we have to fight in everything that we do and every action that we take for working people.
What's the timeline on this? What can we do as an audience outside of Wisconsin, or those who are watching from Wisconsin, to help you out, in your campaign around this?
Well, we've got spring elections coming up, and we had a pretty piss poor turnout for our primary in February, and we've got important elections in the spring. These are city council elections, these are county board elections, and in Wisconsin, it's a superintendent election. It is critical that we get everyone out to vote, and relational organizing is more powerful than ever right now. And I think we have communities who not only believe in change, but believe in transformation, but it has to start at the ballot box, and it has to start with people understanding that their voice matters, and there are people in government who are listening, like Representative Kristina, Shelton, and I.
Representative Shelton, what can people do to help out?
Well, we do have a petition that is out. We are asking people to join us. The next phase of this project is to create an organizing mechanism where we'll be connecting with labor groups and clean water groups, racial justice groups, again, all under the umbrella of this Economic Justice Bill of Rights. But we are asking people to get engaged wherever they are, in whatever lane they exist in their homes, in their conversations with their family and friends. Every day provides an opportunity to engage in conversations that I think for a long time we've been taught not to talk about, right? Don't talk about politics, it's rude. And that has weakened our ability to to withstand some tough conversations.
Mhm.
And I'm constantly inspired by our young people every day. You know, I have a 13-year-old at home. She does not shy away from talking about racial injustice and police brutality. And we've got to look to our young people and give them space to come to the table. And I just ask people, wherever you are, keep up the good fight. Keep reading, keep learning, keep talking, because a brighter future is possible if we actually work together.
Representatives Hong and Shelton, thank you for joining us. This is great. Hopefully you're setting the model for other states. New York would be amazing. In the legacy of FDR, it's the least we could do. Many other states, I know Hawaii is working on something right now as well. We've had somebody on, in the summer roll mode. So it's great work. Thank you for joining us, and good luck. Let us know what happens. We're cheering you on.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you. All right, we will be right back with our fabulous panel. We have Piper Winkler from our team and Natalie Shure on to join us to talk about today's news. There's a lot of it. All right, so Sunset Lake CBD. You guys have heard me talk about the CBD movement and how I was resistant to it. I tried a few, wasn't loving it, and then I tried Sunset Lake CBD. And there's a reason why it works, because they are an ethical company. They're a progressive company. They're a farmer-owned company that ships out craft CBD products directly from their farm to your door. Sunset Lake CBD has something for everyone. They offer tinctures, gummies, fudge, salves, and coffee, which is designed to help with stress, aches, and pains. And I get a lot of all those things. It was originally a dairy farm for the Ben & Jerry's, the Ben & Jerry's that supported Bernie Sanders, the Ben & Jerry's out of Vermont, but they decided to diversify and grow premium hemp. Customers, when you buy Sunset Lake CBD, you support sustainable agriculture that enhances rural communities and creates meaningful employment in that community, because you know what? Their minimum wage is $15 an hour. Huh. Interesting. And employees also own the majority of the company, and they support independent media like our show, The Nomiki Show, and The David Pakman Show, and The Majority Report, those guys. I have talked about the products that I've been using. I have to buy more of the tincture, because when I threw out my back a few days ago, I think I used like half the bottle. But instead of using painkillers or aspirin or whatever it is that normally helps with my ailments, I've been using the CB, and I put it in my drink. And then it also does this thing where it's like there's like a little bit of like a moisture that is left on my lips, so it feels like I have chapstick, and then I get to taste it. It's really lovely. I love the tincture, but I know, Dorsey, you use it too. What's your CBD situation like right now?
Right now, it is almost on empty. I think we've got some gummies left, but yeah, I'm waiting to get some tincture and some more gummies, because those are our favorites. But I tried a bunch of CBD before, and I was always kind of like, it really doesn't do anything, or you just like had to take a lot of it to like get any relief, which was what I was looking for. Because, I partake in the other stuff too. And, it's like, I'm kind of chasing that kind of feeling where I just want to like chill out and not really like, going into a catatonic despair sometimes. So this is a good alternative. And yeah, like I said, I tried a bunch before. They were not very good. And, saw the ad on Majority Report, was with it with like the company's ethics and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, might as well give it a shot. And it's been awesome. It's been a mainstay in our apartment ever since.
Yeah, it's funny because I have hooked my parents and they're buying products now. And then my aunt, she had the fudge. And so she's really into that. But I think what's really good about it for me is that I have a lot of ailments in different ways. Like I have migraines. I threw my back out a few days ago, as you know. I have sleep issues. And then I also I'm just giving you all of my ailments, like what's going to happen to me when I'm like 70. And I have sciatica. And so I use arnica on my sciatica, but their Solve, I forgot to mention this, has arnica in it. So basically like this one product is treating all of my issues. It's pretty cool. So anyways, if you would like to purchase some products from Sunset Lake CBD, go to sunsetlakecbd.com. There's a promo code, NOMI, NOMI. You'll get 20% off of your order. That's sunsetlakecbd.com. And the promo code is NOMI, NOMI. All right, we will be right back with our fabulous panel. Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. We're very excited. It's Femme Friday, my favorite day. We have Natalie Shure. She is a writer. She's a progressive. You've read her work everywhere, Jacobin, LA Times, et cetera, et cetera. Was the former head researcher for Adam Ruins Everything. Did I miss anything, Natalie?
No, I think that sums it up. Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. And Piper Winkler, who is part of Team TNS. She's one of our producers over here. And she's also, are you the founder of Harvard YDSA? But I know you're the co-chair, but are you also the founder?
Yes, I am. So. We're the first generation of Harvard YDSA.
Nice. I love it. Well, okay. There's a lot of news today. A lot of news that makes me cringe, and I'm sure will make you cringe. But I want to start off with Senator Marco Rubio, who is now labor advocate, spokesperson, escalating a push by ambitious Republicans to spotlight American workers. Senator Marco Rubio today will side with the union in a high-stakes organizing campaign at an Amazon facility in Alabama. Say what? This is good, right? Maybe it's like the entrance point. Do you think he's going to be a Democrat soon? Piper, what are your thoughts on this?
I know I just saw the story, and I know that there's more to it in terms of, I might be misrepresenting this, but I remember him making some remark about how if this is what the company and the business wants, then that's good. But something, I don't know, something tells me that Marco Rubio's interests are not aligned with rank and file Amazon workers. So while I'm not truly sure what his motives here and are here in backing the union, just like obviously it took Joe Biden a very, very long time to even just acknowledge the fact publicly while this is going on that workers deserve unions. I'm very hesitant to say that Marco Rubio is truly on the side of the workers, you know?
Yeah. Is this, Natalie, is this part of like the strategy that the Josh Hawleys of the world have right now, or taking on big tech and like leaning more populist maybe on like one thing because it's not going to cost them anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a good way to look at it. I think I've been over my Republican thesis many times. The entire purpose of the party is to act as a wish fulfillment vehicle for capital. And I think that Marco Rubio is pretty on board with that project. That said, I think that they're very happy to, nod aesthetically at more, populist worker-aligned things because, their base is reconstituting itself. But I don't think that that will ever be met by, genuine redistribution policies or, genuine challenging capital. I think in this case, the Republican base sees Amazon as, a particularly liberal company, which, if you have any sort of material analysis, if you understand the divide between capital and labor, I mean, there's no such thing as a left of center mega corporation, particularly not the one that yielded the world's richest person. So, I think that we will see a lot of surface level nods toward this sort of thing as a way to bolster that brand, because I think that they do see that the brand itself has some salience, but I don't think it'll be backed by much. That said, I'd rather have more people support the union vocally than not. So I think that there is an opportunity for liberals and the left to, kind of point to that for our own propagandistic reasons and say, oh, look, even Marco Rubio supports the union. Unions are good. We should be doing that. But I don't think we should delude ourselves about what this means.
Yeah, that was my thought exactly, was use it as a wedge. Like if you can't, I mean, it's sort of like the same thing with the PRO Act where Henry Cuellar is the only Democrat to not vote for it, and 5 Republicans voted for it. Like, there's an ad right there. Henry Cuellar and 5 Republicans. Anywho, all right. So let's move on to Tucker Carlson because oh God, he's so
friend
weird.
of the show.
Friend of the show. Yes, I was a friend of his show at one point. I would go on and debate him. I wasn't friends with him. Where's that Tucker Carlson story? Oh boy, did I jump ahead too far, Dorsey? I think I did. Anywho, there it is. Tucker Carlson has made comments regarding female troops. Quote, what we absolutely won't do is take personnel advice from a talk show host, is what the Pentagon's top spokesperson has said. Tucker Carlson went after, I think there's a clip of it. Can we play that clip? It's a report clip, but it'll give you a summary.
China won't explain the reasoning behind this plan, but there are some clues. Last year, we learned that China has quickly developed the world's largest naval force. In 2015, China had 255 battle force ships. Now they have more than 360. And many of those ships are more capable than anything in the American naval fleet. So how are we responding to this? Well, at the White House yesterday, Joe Biden addressed it effectively. What's the American military's response? Here's what Joe Biden said.
Some of it's relatively straightforward work, where we're making good progress designing body armor that fits women properly, tailoring combat uniforms for women, creating maternity flight suits, updating requirements for their hairstyles. And some of it is going to take an intensity of purpose and mission to really change the culture and habits that cause women to leave the military.
That's it.
So we've got new hairstyles and maternity flight suits. Pregnant women are going to fight our wars. It's a mockery of the U.S. military. Well, China's military becomes more masculine as it's assembled the world's largest navy. Our military needs to become, as Joe Biden says, more feminine, whatever feminine means anymore, since men and women no longer exist. The bottom line is it's out of control, and the Pentagon's going along with this. Again, this is a
I'm like so angry at this whole thing, just from every single aspect. The Joe Biden thing, I'm angry at Tucker Carlson. I'm like, wouldn't it be great to have a woman in this conversation? Just start with that. Piper, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like you have to have the head of the Pentagon on your next Femme Friday to talk about girl bossing the military. No, I completely understand what you're saying. There's truly so much to unpack here. And I think what is so frustrating is just this presentation of this culture war over what feminism is that has no material impact, like the real stakes that women are facing, not being paid adequately for their work, like having wages stolen, obviously facing discrimination in the workplace, and not having access to unions in many cases. These are all being glossed over, as well as many other issues that you talk about on the show all the time are being glossed over in favor of this. Is the US's military so feminine that this is being framed against the masculinity of China's army? And then, of course, there's a layer of xenophobia to deal with as well. The fact that obviously the arbitrary benchmark being set here is that the US has to gauge its military force against China, and why this is meaningful for the working class is in no way addressed here. Watching this clip, I mean, I know that I don't care about this argument that's being formulated. I know it's wrong. But watching this, you would not get a sense as to why any person should care about how masculine or feminine any army is, and why, in fact, we should be investing so much money in this when, of course, like the real problems that people are facing are not having money invested in them by the government. So,
I mean, missiles are very phallic. So if you really want to know where the money is being spent, I'm going to guess it's not on the pregnancy wear of female officers. I'm going to say it's probably on the phallic missiles that we never launch anywhere and just sit there rotting into our land and tainting our water. And Natalie, I mean, okay, so obviously Joe Biden's not focusing on real feminist issues, but even if there were going to be reforms in the military, like maybe address the rape culture a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there are more feminist issues at hand, and I think that what Piper said makes a lot of sense. But I'd also like to note, I mean, nothing good comes from woke militarism, right? Like,
it's like,
I mean, the US Army is the most reactionary institution in the world. It's there to uphold the interests of the American state and of, capitalists at gunpoint. And there's an enormous amount of suffering that happens around the world because of that. And, I think in some way you can see that Tucker Carlson and Joe Biden were doing very similar things in those segments, right? Like they were both doing military boosterism. They were both cheering on the imperial project, carrying on that very bipartisan propaganda project. And for Tucker Carlson's audience, that plays better when you kind of, rah-rah patriarchy a little bit. And Joe Biden is speaking to an audience that, wants a few woke platitudes. And both of them are doing the same thing. As Piper said, the fact that China is this growing economy that, is within, I guess, a stone's throw, relatively speaking, of being able to take on US military might, framing that as a problem that we are going to meet with our military might is, something I would like to see Americans question and push back against more. But instead, we are, talking about this very, very surface level culture war within the institution, and not, questioning what it's for and why we have it, and, the degree to which it does hurt women overseas, the way that it, hurts women in the United States, the way that it suppresses workers around the world. And I would much rather talk about those things from a feminist perspective than about, what woman gets what flight suit, how far along in her pregnancy.
I mean, it's not even like, even if he was to go lean more into the wokeism, he could at least address the crisis of rape in the military. He could I mean, there's so much more he could have done if he wanted to stay in that lane. And that's what's just baffling to me is it's been, I mean, there were documentaries on this that won Oscars, like, and you still can't address it. So anyways, I want to briefly talk about this $1,400 COVID relief bill, or the payment that came out of the COVID relief bill. It's the stimulus check that we're all supposed to get sometime this weekend in our bank accounts. But turns out in this bill, there are no rules stopping debt collectors from seizing those $1,400 checks when they land in the bank account. I mean, credit card Joe? Anyone? Natalie, I know you've been following like Joe Biden's career and backing. Like why? This is
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know, to be clear, I don't know specifically like whether Joe Biden or, some other legislative mechanism was behind that particular rule. I mean, certainly he's not the only friend to financial.
Shocker. My God.
I know. I mean, that industry more broadly is so powerful that they were able to push Katie Porter off the Financial Service Committee earlier this year, which, got a lot of headlines because she was so effective in that role on that committee. So yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that those folks are pretty happy and that they were able to pull some strings to do this too. And it's unconscionable. I mean, $1,400 is already way, way lower than the amount of relief that people need. And knowing that people's bills have been accruing this whole time during this pandemic, and that the only, paltry money outside of the unemployment funds, which, the unemployment money in the bill and that existed earlier is good, but, it's also very narrow. Not everybody who's struggling financially qualifies for unemployment. And so the fact that $1,400 can get eaten into by finance consumer industry vultures is a damn shame.
Well, this is why I never understood the resistance in issuing checks every month, because you have industries, major industries that have been funding the neoliberal class that are dependent on cash flow, whether it's credit cards or the landlords across this country. I mean, or obviously just banks. There are so many different industries that our lawmakers are beholden to. I don't understand why they didn't lobby for them just to print more checks. It's so baffling to me. And what are your thoughts, Piper? Is this?
Yeah, it's a really good question, especially as we're moving toward a period where, eviction moratoriums are also set to expire in various parts of the country, like I think the federal moratorium expires at the end of the month. And of course, in no way have all the people who are facing back months of rent been able to fix their financial situations. And of course, how could they? Like, things have not gotten better for working people in the months since this was put in place. And now the fact that that money is going to be seized from people who need that money to exist and continue to survive during this economic crisis, the fact it's being taken by debt collectors makes no sense in terms of a government that works for working people. And of course, all of the sense in terms of, as Natalie has discussed, a government that is totally led by these lobbies. So I think the fact that there's not an investment in recognizing that people need to be able to stay in their homes, and that, of course, their ability to maintain those homes depends upon them getting even more support. Of course, I think the fear is acknowledging to people that the government could do this all the time and that there's no reason why it shouldn't. The fact that a lot of people could definitely use a regular UBI from the government, could regularly use that kind of support, and that they're not getting it, and they should absolutely be getting it during the pandemic and after. I think acknowledging that would be a real reckoning with the way that the US state approaches actually supporting people who need it. So I understand that they don't want to make that statement, but I know that it would be much better for all of us if they were willing to do so. And that's something that we should be willing to fight for as socialists.
I'm curious, how they prioritize debt. I mean, I assume many people have way more debt than $1,400, and there's, or most people at least, that'll be receiving these checks. And who gets the priority? We know student loans are, they're at the top of the list. There's no way out from that. But after that, which credit cards, which debt? Very curious. All right. So I don't know if you guys have been following what's happened in Nevada. Last weekend, the Democratic Party of Nevada was taken over by Democratic Socialists. Huge story we covered on the show. It was the executive committee that was taken over, which really calls the shots. And as a result, the staff left. Some of it, the executive director was already on the way out, and then the rest of the staff left. But they gutted the party of all its money and decided to funnel it to the DSCC and some other places to essentially pay consultants that are their friends. Just classic Democratic Party. But John Ralston, who is, if you don't recall, he is a Nevada reporter. He is somebody everybody looks to when the caucuses happen, and he was the one in 2016 that reported on the famous chair throwing incident that may or may not have happened. So he's got a great relationship with like the progressive side. So he tweeted this out today. Oh my God, I just couldn't. All right. As I said, I'm learning a lot. Quote, the Las Vegas DSA Socialist Feminist Committee views capitalism and not just the patriarchy as a source of gender oppression. Ladies and gentlemen, your new Nevada Democratic Party. And I love Mike from PA, friend of the show, says, John Ralston, please read a book by a feminist theorist for the first time challenge. This just made me laugh. I'm sorry, guys. But like... it's too cute. It's too cute. And they're so oblivious to, they really should be covering DSA, in my opinion, because if the DSA is taking over the Democratic Party, these reporters have a duty to understand what DSA represents. I mean, what do you think that they think the left is, Piper, as a DSA leader?
It's really funny how similar this kind of fear-mongering around socialist feminism is to the way that Tucker Carlson was speaking in a clip that we just heard a second ago. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the fact that women are materially impacted by the way that our capitalist economy exploits people, maybe this is something that we should think about. And the fact that this is a new idea or is in some way too radical is, of course, one of the reasons that I'm organizing within the DSA, because I think that it's essential that we understand this, and many people understand how this already impacts them in their everyday lives. But it's, of course, infuriating to see this all lifted out of the realm of talking about people's material struggles solely again into this culture war, where everything is about radical emphasizing this. The fact that the person who's tweeted this clearly wants us to believe that smash the patriarchy is something that belongs on a mug, and that feminism is not actually a struggle you bring into your everyday life, and is something that you seek to win not only by talking just about a single issue, but understanding intersectionally how strengthening unions and achieving, for example, universal healthcare would improve women's lives. I mean, obviously, that's what a vision of socialist feminism means to me. And of course, it has to do with the way that capitalism takes away from people the very basic things that they need to survive. So I'm thrilled that the Nevada DSA and Bernie people who are now in the Democratic Party are pushing that message, because it seems very clear to me.
Yeah. It's almost like they need to have conference calls with these reporters to educate them a little bit more about basic. It's mind-blowing that this guy could have an entire career and tweet that out mockingly, but I should be surprised, but I'm not. Natalie, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, to take his tweet in good faith, maybe he was being a little sarcastic, and maybe I'm sure that he was genuinely being confronted by this argument for the first time. And I think that it's very possible to be a relatively educated person in the United States and really have no sense of material relations, no understanding of, Marxist critiques of capitalism, et cetera, by design, right? Like we're not taught those things on purpose. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is I think that COVID has actually been a moment of great visibility for socialist feminist arguments. Right. Like Silvia Federici has been in the New York Times recently. The idea that we have to sell our time for wages, and that in a country with no universal welfare programs that were then pulled in multiple directions. I think people understood that. It's not as if that's completely new, but I do think that it was the first time that a lot of upper middle class professionals were really forced to confront these things to the degree that they have. And, I hope that there ends up being more understanding of, capitalism. And I don't use the word patriarchy in isolation anymore. I think it can be, a helpful descriptor. I think that something can be, a patriarchal scenario or whatever, something along those lines. I think we understand what that means, but there is no patriarchy without, at least not in the way that we understand it. Yeah, I think that it's very, very important to understand feminist oppression through a leftist lens and to understand these things. And, I hope that he reads that whole thing and asks some follow-up questions and joins one of the events that I'm sure that they put on in their chapter or others. I think that these are things that are really great to understand. And in my experience, I think that a lot of maybe liberal or progressive women hearing socialist feminist arguments really is a game changer for them. I think that they're powerful arguments in my experience. And so I hope that more people hear them.
Absolutely. And we need to lean on unions to make that case as well, especially the female-led unions, to connect the dots, because John Ralston is a reporter who covers politics in Nevada, which is a heavy union state. And the fact that he couldn't connect the dots there after reporting there for that long, that's what shocks me, is how you can operate in those spaces. Sort of shocks me. I don't know. It's just an opportunity. This is why you have to take over, the DSA has to take over the Democratic Party, because when they win, all these reporters, this isn't why, but all these reporters are now confronted with, they have to learn. They have to learn. So anyways, Piper Winkler, Natalie Shure, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining us for Femme Friday.
Thank you so much. Happy Femme Friday, everyone.
Happy Femme Friday. We should tweet that out. Everyone get that going. Happy Femme Friday.
Okay.
All right. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to Professor Harvey Kaye, because he connected us with our main panel today, talking about the Wisconsin Economic Justice Bill of Rights. It was amazing. So I want to give him a shout out. I know that he's in the chat right now, and he did ask me, he said, you might want to ask I don't know that. What happened to the Lafayette progressive tradition in Wisconsin, to put it in historical perspective? So I missed that opportunity. So hopefully Professor Harvey Kaye can come on next time and remind us. All right, some shout outs. Art, thank you for that love. That's so generous. Thank you so much. Chuck Diesel, a moderator, sending his love, saying, happy Friday, Nomiki. Your next cup of coffee is on me. That's a few cups of coffee there, but thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it. Kyla Rosado, Hawaii is doing a similar economic bill of justice legislative package, part of the feminist economic recovery package, via Kara Jabola. She came on our show a few weeks ago. If you missed that, Kyla, or anybody else, go check it out. It's in the archives. She joined to talk about what's happening in Hawaii. It's really incredible and inspirational. And she came on a Femme Friday, so it'll be easy to find. Pete from Oakland, no better day of the week than Femme Friday. Agreed. Thursdays are also great. I agree. Guess you just dominate the awesome political commentary sphere, Nomiki. Love your perspective and voice. Thank you. I love our guests. I say every day is my favorite. I know that's cheesy, but I really do. Every day has a different vibe. I always leave the show feeling inspired. So hopefully you do too. Fire Kowalski from Nebraska, sending his love, says, Trump must not have funded the Navy. Why did Trump hand Biden a broken military, Tucker? Why did Trump forget to build boats, Tucker? Where were you for the last 4 years, Tucker? Tucker failed us. You're right, because Tucker was the one in Trump's ear. And, what happened? That's what I want to know. All right, we've got some other shout outs. Professor Harvey Kaye was in YouTube today. And big thank you to MIDI Docs and Mario for working those algorithms. And of course, our YouTube moderators, Bob C., Choke in the Orb, and Chuck Diesel again. And of course, on Twitch, Dorian Sapiens, A Difficult Truth, Nightbot, Our Means, and Nug Wrangler. Thank you as always. And as always, stay in solidarity. We will see you on Tuesday.